as we celebrate this Thanksgiving. Let me tell you, one of the things I am very thankful for is being pastor of Lihue Lutheran Church and having this opportunity to be part of your lives. But as we celebrate Thanksgiving, it also collides with the liturgical calendar of Christ the King. Christ the King Sunday was really never one of my favorite, and usually I would just skip it. But because we had this extra Sunday, I couldn't really skip it. So I'm kind of stuck, and I even looked in my file. I've never preached on it. I've been skipping it for a long time. One of the reasons I think I skipped it, it's one of the latest of the church holidays. It actually wasn't declared into the liturgical calendar until 1925. In 1925, it was Pope Pius XI who instituted the celebration of Christ the King Sunday. And the reason he celebrated 1925 Europe, nationalism, socialism, all kinds of things, and everyone is trying to lure people to say, follow, this is the way, and the tensions and the fear, and in a way to begin to say, you know, Germans follow Jesus. British people follow Jesus. Swedish people follow, and really he tried to hold up to the fact that there isn't this need for us to go down this path because we only have one king, and it's Christ the King. And it is a wonderful concept. The problem is it didn't work. It didn't stop World War II. It hasn't stopped tensions ever since. And I think one of the reasons it didn't work is we didn't really see the text. And it's a strange text. I would much rather, when I think of Christ the King, think of that first lesson or that second lesson. In the clouds and descending and angels when he's on his throne and robes are flowing. That's why I like this, you know. But then you get that gospel text, and Jesus is bound, beaten, betrayed, and led before Pilate. And we are told, this is your king. When I was in seminary, I spent a year studying, well actually 2 years, studying in Washington, D.C., and I was working with this little inner city church in D.C. with their youth group, fun kids and whatnot. And I noticed in the paper that King, what was his name? Olstoff. What was his name? I forget. King of Sweden. Yeah, Olstoff. If you just go like that, everybody knows Swedish. King of Sweden was coming for some reason to meet with the president and whatnot. So I turned to the kids and I said, hey, have you guys ever seen a real king? You want to go see a king? I said, yeah. So we loaded up, we went down, we went to the embassy, the Swedish embassy and whatnot. We waited for him to come out for his meeting. And he got out of this limousine with his entourage and they all go in. And as we were watching, all of a sudden I feel this. And I looked down at this little kid saying, which one's the king? And I said, the skinny guy in the green jacket with the blonde hair and blue eyes. What Swede doesn't have blonde hair? And then I hear this. He sure doesn't look much like a king to me. We see this Jesus, and my reverse reaction is, he just doesn't seem like much of a king to me. In this interchange, you hear this dialogue between Pontius Pilate and Jesus. And it's interesting. 7 times Pontius Pilate has to move. He moves outside where Jesus' adversaries are. And then he moves back inside to the Praetorium where he rules from. And there is Jesus. And you get this constant motion of Pontius Pilate going back and forth. And while this motion is going on in the midst of this trial, it is framed by these 2 questions. And the first question is, are you king of the Jews? And the last question is, what is the truth? And you see, for the Jewish people, for Jesus to be executed, he cannot be executed by the Jews. Only Rome has the right of life and death. And not only that, if he's to be crucified, crucifixion was limited only for those who threatened Caesar and were treasonous. And so if somehow or another this Jesus could be proved that he said he is king of the Jews, that the Jews should be following him instead of the Caesar, then that's treason, and it is grounds for him to be executed. And so it's on that basis that Pilate goes and asks Jesus as his first question, are you king of the Jews? Because really you don't look like much of a king to us or to the world. And really when you see that scene, Pilate looks much more like a king. He has the authority. He's got the look. He's got the swagger. He's got the people under him taking orders. He controls, and he is free to rule as he wishes. As we gather for worship on this Sunday, we're tucked between Thanksgiving and Advent. And these two questions frame this worship service. Who is this Jesus? Is he king? And the other is, what is the truth? In the Greco-Roman world, truth was much more like we understand truth. It was an abstract ideology or concept. It kind of floated above humanity, and it existed in all times and in all places. It floated above us, and it became valid in all circumstances and all places. Science uses that. Basically, science says if you can take out all the confounding variables and then you get the same results each time, then it must be factual, and therefore it is the truth, because you can replicate it anywhere. The amazing thing is, whenever I did scientific experiments, I found out I was always the confounding variable. It never came out the same twice. But in the Hebrew understanding of truth, truth would never be facts. It was something totally different. For the Hebrew people, the truth was the presence of God. It is not a dead concept or a belief floating above human existence. It is the truth of living breath, this presence of this God, changing the diversity and the challenging facts of our world. And the truth is, this presence of this God keeps going beyond the facts of my life and keeps bringing meaning and value to my life. It's interesting, when you do your bio, you always have the facts of your life. Paul Kershaw was born 7/24/1953, was married to this date, got his degree from here and there. Not only I had 2 children, whatnot. The facts don't really tell you the truth. If you really want to know the truth, talk to Karen. What does it mean to be married to this man? I have no idea. It can't be that easy, isn't it? Want to know the truth? Talk to you guys. Not that I graduated from Gettysburg Seminary in 1979. What is it like? I have to hear that man week after week after week. And how do you put up with it? That becomes the truth, and with value and meaning that goes beyond just the facts. That was the Hebrew understanding, and that comes from this breath, this word of this God. On this Christ the King Sunday, what is the deeper truth? Are you king of the Jews? A simple yes or no answer doesn't answer. Instead, what do you see? And what we see here is God is the one that gives life and death, and it is not Rome. That Jesus is not part of Pilate's kingdom. In fact, Pilate is part of God's kingdom, and Pilate is part of God's plan. That this God has entered into Pilate's praetorium. He has entered into the Roman-ruled world. He has entered into you and me and Lahui Lutheran Church. And here's the true miracle of the truth of this God. And here's the deep reason we give thanks on this day. It says God comes and enters. He's not here to judge, or to condemn, or control, or conquer. But he comes to stoop down and love and serve. I was working with a church in western Texas, and as I was looking, they were just having just a terrible, terrible time. And as I was looking at their mission statement is, they had 5 things. One was the teaching ministry, but under the teaching ministry says, we teach belief in Jesus. And I said, I would really like you to change that. I said, I would like you to change it to say, we teach being the faith of Jesus. It is one thing to tell you the facts of Jesus. We're in a few minutes going to stand up and say the Apostles' Creed. He was born under Virgin Mary. He suffered under Pilate. All the facts. But that is very different than saying the faith of Jesus is now my faith. And when that faith becomes my faith, it begins to change things. And it begins to lead. And it has the power to rule. And it is in that I begin to know love is stronger than hate. And life is better than death. And giving is more blessed than receiving. And it is not that I am just a forgiven child of God, but I am becoming a forgiving person. And I am not just a child of God, so are you. And I have to begin to see you that way. Simply to believe in Jesus is somewhat innocuous. but to make Jesus' beliefs mine is power and a change, and it begins to rule my life. Not from fear and intimidation, but by a creative, loving God. Today we celebrate Jesus as not just a factor, an ideology, or a historical character we study. The truth is, he is the presence of God, word broken, given for you. Still active, still loving, still creating, still bringing meaning to us. It is that ongoing presence of God's word that centers our thanksgiving this day and always. For Pilate, for the world, they look at the facts of this Jesus, and it doesn't add up. He doesn't look much like a king. For the people of faith, there is nothing else. There is no one else to follow. This is our King. And we give our thanks and our lives. Who is this King in your life? What is the truth?